I'm Janet Morana, the Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to Just Ask Janet. And of course, I hope you're enjoying our program now in the evening time slot. I think it's a bit easier for everyone. They don't have to worry about school or work, and you can relax and enjoy the good guests I've been having lately. Well, joining me today is one of the powerhouses at Priests for Life. It's our Associate Director, Father Denis Wilde, and he has been with Priests for Life since 1998.
Yeah.
That's right. And he's also a professor. He was a professor of the whole music department at Villanova University, and he's an accomplished pianist. He gives concerts. He speaks at parishes. He's such a great asset to our ministry. So, Father Denis, welcome to the program.
Well, I don't know who you were just introducing. That's a wonderful introduction, Janet. Thank you so much.
Well, take us back to 1998,
sure.
Okay?
Yeah,
what
I can remember that far.
Try to remember.
Yeah.
What inspired you to, just kind of say, I'm gonna leave Villanova University.
Yeah,
I've been a professor all these years. I've directed the choral group.
Right.
I've had all these wonderful things that have happened. What caused you to go to your provincial and say, you know what?
Yeah.
I want to be with Priests for Life full time.
I felt, what I was doing. I loved what I was doing. And I would go back to it like in a flash, in a sense, But I felt the Lord, as this way I put it to people, I felt the Lord was saying, tapping on my shoulder, the more important things than resolving dominant seventh chords in a classroom.
Right.
And I knew, of course, what I'm talking about is, I had been speaking about Roe v. Wade. I was in the rescue movement actually back in the late 80s, the early 90s there, I think it was, in Philadelphia and Delaware area. And I saw the way people were responding with such fervor and love. And I felt that they needed pastors, they needed the priests to be there. And when I saw the organization called Priests for Life, it suited me perfectly. I think that's where the Lord was calling me. And so with that, I asked the provincial if I could take the time and do it, and he allowed that time for me to be able to do that. And I guess it was good riddance because they never called me back again.
Well, yeah, Father. You've been with us now 2 decades.
Yeah.
2 decades of
plus, yeah.
Plus, traveling all over the United States and different countries too, giving preaching, of course, at masses on the weekend, right. Giving parish missions, right? I know you've also accompanied groups on pilgrimages and been the chaplain for the pilgrimages, meaning giving daily mass, hearing confessions, leading rosaries. But it's always with that pro-life slant to it, so to speak.
Yes.
Where we're trying to feed the people, it's like, unless they start thinking about abortion, they're not going to stop having abortions, and they're not going to stop voting for candidates who support abortion. So they got to be educated. So you've been doing this for like a long time.
And love it, yeah.
And you like it, because people ask me that too, Father, all the time. Come on, guys, you really think you're making progress? Don't you get tired of getting up every day and doing this work? But you don't, do you?
No. And the Lord measures the progress, not we. It comes from God. And that's it. We're made in the image and likeness of God. There's nothing more basic and fundamental than that. That's why our organization, our group, our family really is an ecumenical thing. It goes way beyond even the Catholic position, although the Catholic position defines so very, very beautifully in the documents that we have, and we'll probably get to that. But I found it, one of the beautiful things was going to these places. And I was going 4 out of 5 weekends, and then while I was on those weekends, we would, as Father Frank likes to call it, maximize
the trip.
And so not just do the weekend masses, but it would also be in schools. And how good that was, because we can get to younger people, find out where their thoughts are, because that changes too, the culture change. So that was beautiful. The other thing too I found is the way people were so grateful. You don't need to do miraculous stuff. They just are grateful for you to respond to it. And I felt that was it was a synergy, working back and forth with people on this. I gave retreats. The retreats, they were pro-life retreats, the different ways by which we look at this, from the medical, the legal, from all different aspects of it. But just the love of the people and that symbiosis, and to see the churches around the country that were built way back with immigrants coming here, finding that just wanted the church is so important in their life, but they built these beautiful buildings, which is a reflection of who they were. This is something we need to recapture as well. But made in the image and likeness of God, that's what it's about, and we need to do that from womb to tomb. I would talk about 5 different things. First of all, prayer, most important thing. Without prayer, this is just a social work action, and that's not what we're about.
And then, of course, Father, speaking of prayer, I mean, at Priests for Life, we have the largest prayer campaign, and people can go to prayercampaign.org if they want to see all the prayers. But you yourself have led lots of prayers outside of abortion mills,
yes.
right?
Yeah, the being unpresent, that was the third point of it, actually.
Yeah.
First prayer, then persuasion. We have to persuade people.
Right.
We can't just pray about it. God has given us a mind, and that's sometimes we don't do that. We have to look at the proper words to use. Just words themselves can be wonderful. Take the word woman, it's beautiful. Man, beautiful. But let's put it in perspective. When we're talking about somebody who is carrying a child, she is a mother. Mm-hmm. And when we use that word mother, zingo, baby's there, right? We don't have to twist the arm and say, there's a baby there, there's a baby. No, they know it.
Right.
And the same thing with a boyfriend. It's not a boyfriend, he's a father. He may not like to know that, but he's
the
father.
dad.
He's
That's
a dad.
right, yeah.
And we need to affirm the dads that are married and their wives are with child. I mean, the same thing there.
So, Father, in the long time that you've been here with Priests for Life, you mentioned, you speak in schools. Now, I know you've spoken in grammar schools and high schools and college campuses. You were a professor of music at Villanova. But for the very youngest children, you've spoken in grammar schools. As you know, very often parents and teachers will hear, oh, we can't talk about abortion in front of the children. Oh, they shouldn't hear about it. What's the kind of message you've been giving to those younger school-age children when you have spoken in a grammar school?
God loves us. God makes us in his image and likeness. They can understand that.
Right.
They don't have to define it like St. Thomas Aquinas did, but they have to know the idea that there is love that is there and that their parents love them, and that we can see in that love, the babies, they may have a sibling, to recognize too, and to see how the parents treat them, and that's a reflection of how God does it. And so that interacts, and I've shown films that have gone way back. I forget the name of it. It's been a while since we've done this, but the films which show the baby growing in the womb.
Oh, the embryoscopy.
Yeah, that was very good. And sometimes they were even narrated by school children.
Right.
And they put it in a way that is very, very simple. At times you get people who respond negatively. The parents will say, oh, don't teach my kids about sex before I do. It's not about sex. It's not about that at all. It's about the beautiful growth of the child in the womb. And the kids are fascinated. I remember one place I was in, I think it was in Kentucky, Bowling Green, some years ago. And I remember they even had kindergarten kids that were sitting down around the front. So we had a big screen. And the screen at that time was reflective. You could see. So I was walking around the room and I could see these little tots. I mean, they were 4 or 5 years of age, looking and saying and pointing to themselves and pointing and recognizing those babies.
That unborn child was them at one time. Yeah. I was that too. Look at that. Yeah.
So you don't have to get into the whole.
So you don't really say the word abortion then with the youngest ones, right? Or you're just introducing them to the.
It depends on the grade. How it is, but they know early enough. And the problem, of course, is abortion. Today has lost its punch because it's just the word is used. Sometimes you need to show what that is, of course. But early on, we got to do it delicately, but. I think starting with the love of God, the love of parents, and some of them may not have that, but still.
And the development of the unborn child, which they once were also, is a way, because then as they get a little bit older and they hear that people are killing the babies, mommies are afraid to be mommies and killing babies, they'll remember those images of that baby. It's not a clump of cells. They go, oh no, I saw that heartbeat, the little tiny baby. So it's education.
And even when they see the child, I remember one. I forget her name, the nurse from Arkansas. You probably know the book. Who Broke the Baby? I think it's called. And she talks about her. I think it was her son. Comes down the stairs because he's upstairs in his room, and she's showing slides, preparing for the next day. I mean, I used to remember when my dad used to show pictures getting it ready for Christmas morning when he'd come down the stairs. So it attracts the attention of the child. Comes down the stairs, and what she's showing are actually aborted babies.
Oh wow!
And he sucks in his breath and says, who broke the baby, Mom? Who broke the? And that's a little, you feel sorry for the kid who hears that. But what is the baby, the child saying? He's not. Oh, he's yuck! Don't show me those pictures. Yuck! He's not saying that at all.
No, he wants to know
He
what
wants to know
happened.
who's behind that scene. Who did this?
Right.
How
Exactly.
did this go on?
How did that happen?
So the truth of conscience flows right from the earliest days of
Yeah,
childhood. you
yeah.
know?
Well, little kids get the concept of live baby good, dead baby bad.
Yeah.
It's like the concept you just said, who broke the
Yeah.
baby. Well, the other thing you do quite well, Father, on the road is people hear us talk about pro-life concerts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you weave the pro-life message into the piano playing?
Well, it's not that easy sometimes. I'll give you an example of when I was at a high school at St. Augustine's rather, in New Orleans, high school there, the Josephite fathers there. And I went on stage. Well, actually, the priest there said, look, just I'll introduce you. Don't start talking. Go on and play piano first. And I did. And I played a Dave Brubeck piece, some kind of jazzy thing, and they enjoyed it. They really enjoyed it. And I said, thank you very much for that. I said, but that piece of music I played is kind of a simple melody to it. And I went da 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 da, and they all knew that. They heard it 1,000 times in the piece of music, so I didn't have to convince them of that. But I said, basically that's the genetic code, if you will, of that piece,
Right.
And I said that little genetic code runs through the whole piece of music, and then you get to introduce how we ourselves, in our first moments of conception, have the genetic code that's going to make us who we are too. So
Right.
you can bring it in like that. Or
Yeah, from the very moment that DNA is still there.
Right.
From
But normally the
conception.
concerts that I do don't necessarily flow into that. I have a message in my concert program, how we need to defend life and how music can be a way by which it neutralizes some of the anxieties. It neutralizes a lot of the things that people. Language can be a problem sometimes. That's why we need to have precise language when we speak. But music speaks to the heart. It gets beyond it. I mean, just recently we're here in not Staten Island, in Florida.
Florida.
Rather. We're down in Florida, and we have a wonderful reunion of everybody, and it went
Right.
so beautifully. Well, one of the highlights was the moment where people were singing together.
Right.
And it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because there's an emotional tie there. So I'm not reducing everything to emotion, but it's a way to get to this issue. It's a way to get to it, to bring the heart into it. And it just isn't the heart, it's saying, I can understand this no matter what language I speak. So there's something about music which does that.
Right.
I'll play a piano. My music is classical music. I do, Chopin and Liszt and a lot of other composers, Beethoven, of course. So that's what I play, but it's a way to break the ice, too. That's another thing, getting into a parish.
Right.
And I don't do it at every weekend that I go. It's where there's an opportunity to do
Well,
it.
you got to have the nice
They have to have
piano.
the piano, too.
Yeah.
And the schedule, too.
Right.
Depends
Yeah.
on that, too. But it works
And
out
that's
nicely.
why I think you also play Broadway tunes. I've heard
Oh,
you
yeah.
play that.
Well, I taught Broadway. I taught that at Villanova for a number of years, the Broadway musical.
Ah.
I loved it. We didn't get to too many musicals, but we played and showed the music from that, a number of different things. And I love those things. I mean, and some of those early works, I mean, when you get to look at George Gershwin and his brother Ira, they're very great music, and it talks about life, too. It talks in a beautiful marriage, mostly, not about unborn, but nevertheless good stuff. Yes.
Right. And then, Father, right now I think, well, first of all, we're coming back now out of the pandemic after all these churches were closed for so long. A lot of activities, just reduced to nothing. Everything's gearing back up again. But I think people who are very involved or passionate about the pro-life issue, I think sometimes they feel very isolated where they are. Maybe there's no Respect Life committee at their parish, and they wish there was, or they wish their priest would preach more, they wish this, they wish that. So at Priest for Life, we have developed a spirituality, right, to help kind of shore them up more, right? A pro-life spirituality, which I know you're heading up for us, called the Missionaries of the
Gospel of Life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the title, Missionaries of the Gospel of Life, is a beautiful title because it reflects the gospel of life, which is it's an attitude, first of all, that we look at life through the lens of the gospel, but it's also a reflection of a wonderful document by our late St. John Paul II. And he wrote this in 1995, and it was given on the Feast of the Annunciation, very, very typically. I mean, it makes sense to do that because that was the day that Christ came into the world, not on Christmas. He came into the world on the Annunciation in the womb of Mary, right? So this is a beautiful day. But he gave the Gospel of Life is a beautiful encyclical that talks about all different phases, all different aspects of life from womb to tomb. It's a very formidable document, and so it's the basis upon which this organization, this society, if you will, within Priests for Life is developed. But Janet, you're right, especially coming out of COVID and the lockdown attitude, we need to have something that brings us together. Right. And it may not do it physically, but thank God for the media. Thank God for the web. We can
Zoom now. Everyone's using Zoom.
Well, Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're doing that now, and there's an emphasis here on spirituality. There's an emphasis on action. So those two phases of it, and study, and people need to study. So first of all, prayer again. Like I was starting to say before when my preaching on the same idea, that's the essential thing. I mean, any preacher is going to say that, right? Prayer is part of our marketing in a way,
Well,
but it is
that
the
Latin
basis
phrase,
of everything.
Ora et labora, right?
The Benedictines, they're
right. First you work, and first you pray and then you work, right?
That's right.
First the prayer.
So we need both, and in that we need to study part of it, the prayer, and that builds up a sense of understanding. So there's prayerfulness, and then there's the scriptures, getting to know that, especially the pro-life parts of that are very all throughout Scripture, but some are very definite. And our Holy Father, the late Holy Father John Paul II, puts those beautiful passages into Evangelium Vitae, which is Latin for the Gospel of Life. That's why our title is MEV, which EV means is the Latin
Evangelium
Vitae. But it's Missionaries of the Gospel of Life. An amazing, encyclical that we have studied. We have a study guide for it ourselves that is online. We can probably get that too for them.
Right.
But action is important as well. So if the person who's down at the abortion mill, is that person alone? Maybe not. Maybe a couple of other people there. But do they know that this is going on all over the country?
Right.
That's the connectivity is a very, very important element in this.
Right. Yeah, because they're not the only people, as we know, through the 40 Days for Life program, and even before 40 Days for Life.
Sure.
I mean, people have been out almost since the 70s. Once we had Roe v. Wade, people of faith reacted to say, "What do you mean they're killing babies?" And what did they do? They went to where the killing was taking place to try to intervene. I mean, that's been for decades now, out in front of the abortion mill. And I've been out there like you have, Father, on many of occasions. And yeah, sometimes you can feel pretty alone out there, just
right.
you and one other person praying.
Yeah.
And you feel like, are we getting anywhere? Are we making a difference? And we all know about the countless numbers of babies that have been saved. And then there are all the ones we'll never know because the people drove by, saw the presence, especially with a priest being there, and drove away, right?
Right. And I've been told a number of times, standing in front of an abortion mill, that the father, somebody who's on our side, you got to walk over here so that in that window, that person sees you out there.
Right.
That is very, very things like that, which will bring about a change. It's amazing. Sometimes people just need to have somebody say, "I'm with you, and I love you, but right. I don't like what you're doing because it's hurting your child is hurting you."
Right.
And just the fact that they got the attention sometimes it makes the difference. You don't have to do too much on it.
Well, people, if they want to know more about this spirituality, of course, they can go to our Priests for Life website,
right.
priestsforlife.org, and right there on the home page, there's a little symbol for MEV. Click on that, and we have actually all the spirituality, the components of it, of this spirituality. And we're starting, and we'll take a little break for the summer, but come the fall, we're going to have monthly Zoom calls for people who want to begin to read and discuss. We don't have to be all together in one room anymore now with right. Zoom. So we are going to take that Evangelium Vitae document as a group, all over the United States. People are going to come on Zoom, and we'll unpack different parts of it, because I know for myself, there are certain paragraphs that I kind of cling to because I know them. Like, for example, paragraph 99. For women who've had abortions, they cling to that paragraph because the Holy Father says it so beautifully that we're entrusting your baby to the Lord, you know. But then there's so much in there, Father, like about he takes on elections and politics in the document, right?
And I got to say, the follow-up of that is even more in that area of politics is even, well, the Holy Father talks about it definitely and speaks about the principles behind it. There's a document that came out in 1998, 3 years afterwards, called Living the Gospel of Life. And that was undertaken by the USCCB, the Bishops' Conference. Anyway, that's a very important one too, because that gives you specifics about American life and how we need to deal with it there. So those two documents are, for anybody who's listening who wants to follow up on their own, the Gospel of Life, you can get that online, just Google it, and it'll come up on the Vatican website, and you can read it many different ways.
Yeah, and if they like the study guides, both the Gospel of Life study guide and Living the Gospel of Life, that's available at our online store at prolifeproducts.org, and we'll ship that out to you right away. You could start using those study guides to kind of get into the document. And then I know with the Missionaries of the Gospel of Life, we've had now, I would say, quite a nice number of people who have begun to study this spirituality. And don't they tell us, Father, that it makes them feel connected, because sometimes they're kind of by themselves doing their pro-life work. I mean, you've gone around now and spoken to enough of them. Right. There's a connectivity they feel, isn't it?
They feel that. Oh, there's some places where they actually do come together. I mean, in Philadelphia, it's a little dormant now because of COVID, but there were groups there. There were groups out in Washington State, a group out there, and several others that. But a lot of times people are so far apart, you know, like in some of these, you know, sparse population areas.
Right.
So you can now, the Zoom is a very good thing too, but nothing like coming together and having a sharing as well.
Well, taking off our masks and seeing each other.
Yes.
I mean, that's been, I mean, we're here in Florida, pretty much we're mask free now, and it's been a huge difference, I noticed. Even in church now, where people can sit in church and sing without a mask on, and they can worship without the mask on. And they see each other again. It was so funny.
They know who you are.
They know who you are. Because when I walked in the first time to my parish without my mask on, one lady went, "Oh, Janet, hi!" Like, it's like she couldn't notice me before because of my mask. So, well, I hope many of our people decide to go to our website, and there's a form you can fill out up there. If you're interested in the Missionaries of the Gospel of Life, you, Father Denis, will give them a call, send them an email, and you'll begin to talk to them about the spirituality and then invite them to be on one of our monthly Zooms.
And the great thing about this, too, is we learn from one another. It's not just our giving this information. It's also learning the wonderful things that people are doing. And then they can pick up, oh, that's another thing I need to do in my church or in my community. And they learn that from one another by these calls. And it's very effective.
Yeah, it's the idea sharing, I think, on the Zoom call that's the most important, because like you said, what they're doing over here, someone else might say, well, how did you get that started? You know, how did you work that out? And it's the sharing of ideas. And also, too, I think the hints that both you give and Father Frank gives, Father Frank Pavone, and the other people of how to deal with their priests. Because very often, you've got very active pro-life people in a parish, but the priest isn't quite on board. Father is not.
The Father has a great booklet on that.
Yes, he does.
Addressing
proclaiming the message of life. Right. And we'll send that. Everyone who's listening right now, we will send you that book free of charge for your priest or deacon, Proclaiming the Message of Life. All you have to do is simply send an email to mail@priestforlife.org. Okay, and just say, hey, Janet, we saw you on Just Ask Janet. You promised to send me that book for my priest or deacon, and I will send it to you free of charge as a gift. Because isn't that the purpose?
Well, what's in there?
We want every priest.
First of all, in that, it's a very important book because it gives the theology behind all of this, so that that priest will be connected. It's not, oh, this is just some fad. No, it's not. It's something that's extremely essential to ordination, but also our faith. Right. And then the second part of it has those beautiful homily hints. Right. You know, the Sunday of the year, and then a little short message about how you can apply that to the pro-life message. And then there is the prayer of the faithful. They're also in there too. Right. As part of that. So that
it's really a great recipe book then for the priests and deacons, because many of these deacons all preach and make up the prayers of the faithful for the parish. Right. So Well, Father Denis, thank you for joining me
you're welcome. My
again.
pleasure.
Wonderful
Yeah,
program. And of
Good.
course, if brothers and sisters, if you'd like to have Father Denis come to your parish, then just come to our website. We have a wonderful people here in our Speakers Bureau. They'll have you could fill out a form online and give us some particulars. We'll walk you through the whole process, okay? And I know Father Denis would love to see many of you and come out there and play the piano and preach in your parish. So be in touch with us. So thank you for joining us on Just Ask Janet. Remember, the products Father and I mentioned are on our wonderful online store. Go and visit prolifeproducts.org. Until next time, remember, there are some abortions only you can stop and some lives only you can save. Join us again next time. Thank you. God.
I will be silent. No.